Tomorrow is not just another transit. Tomorrow, Jupiter crosses into Leo, a real planetary ingress. Not a metaphor, not a mood, an actual threshold opening in the sky as you watch this. And I need you to hear this before it happens, not after. Because if you have spent years dimming yourself, waiting for permission, staying quiet to stay safe, shrinking so no one would feel the full size of you, this shift was built for exactly that part of you. What gets crowned tomorrow is not just ambition, it is your visibility, your unapologetic, fully seen presence. Most people will sleep through what just opened, but you are here, so you won't. Now understand exactly what you are stepping into, because this is not a transit that comes around often. Jupiter only returns to Leo once every 12 years. The last time was July of 2014 through August of 2015, a stretch when visibility broke open everywhere, when bold voices rose, when confidence became contagious across the culture. Think back. Whatever was expanding in your life then is the same frequency knocking now. And here is what makes this even more potent. Jupiter is not drifting into the middle of Leo. It crosses at 0 degrees, the rawest, purest point of any sign, the threshold with no leftover energy diluting it. 0 degrees is pure initiation. Full voltage from the first second. For the last year, Jupiter sat in Cancer, pulling you inward, into emotional safety, into retreat, into staying small. Leo is the exact reversal, outward, radiant, unafraid to be seen. So if you have felt quietly exhausted by all that hiding, doesn't that sound familiar? Yes, that exhaustion is exactly the thread I want to pull on, because you have been carrying it longer than you admit. There is a specific kind of tiredness that has nothing to do with sleep. It is the tiredness of measuring every room before you enter it, calculating how much of yourself is safe to show, who gets the full version and who gets the edited one, which parts of you survive which spaces. You have rehearsed shrinking so many times that it stopped feeling like a choice and started feeling like a personality. And underneath that, the creative impulses you keep postponing, the idea you never voiced, the version of your life that feels one size too small, like clothes you outgrew but kept wearing because changing felt dangerous. Here is what I need you to understand. That restlessness is not failure. It is not you being ungrateful or unstable. It is pre-transit pressure, the soul recognizing a threshold before the mind has the words for it. You feel the door before you see it. So what does Jupiter in Leo actually unlock, and why now? It unlocks 3 things, in a precise order, and I need you to hold them in your mind as you listen, because each one is a lock, and Jupiter in Leo carries a specific key for each. First, your creative voice stops being optional. The thing you do on the side, the expression you keep treating as a hobby or an afterthought, Leo pulls it to the center and turns it into the very currency of who you are. Second, your visibility stops requiring an apology. You stop editing yourself before you walk into rooms, relationships, or platforms. You stop asking permission to take up space. Third, recognition finds you, not because you perform the acceptable version of yourself, but because Jupiter, in Leo, rewards authenticity at a scale no other sign allows. And here is what makes this dangerous to ignore. These are not scattered gifts. They are a sequence. Each one opening the next, all 3 live across the 13 months beginning tomorrow. So let me show you the first key. But before that first key turns, you need the map. Because this isn't a single moment, it's a sequence stretched across 13 months. And knowing its shape is what lets you move with it instead of missing it. Tomorrow, June 30th, the door opens. Not slowly. The moment Jupiter crosses into Leo, the energy is live, immediate, already reaching for you. Then, around December, Jupiter stations retrograde. This isn't a setback, it's the integration phase, where everything you started gets pulled inward to be refined, deepened, and where what you abandoned years ago quietly asks to be reclaimed. By mid-March of 2027, Jupiter stations direct, And this is the second surge, when the visibility you planted early begins arriving in full, often louder than you expected. The transit closes late July 2027. After that, this exact door does not reopen for 12 years. So the question is no longer whether, it's what you reach for first. So, what do you reach for first? For so many of you, the answer is something you've already buried. Here's why. Leo rules the fifth house, the house of creativity, self-expression, art, and unfiltered joy. And Jupiter, the planet of expansion, is about to flood that exact room with light. This is the part of your chart where you make something that is undeniably, unapologetically yours. And you know the pattern. You created in private when no one could critique it. You started projects and quietly let them die before the ending. You dimmed your aesthetic, softened your edges, made your work smaller so it would be easier for other people to swallow. You treated your creative gift as a hobby, a luxury you'd get to once survival was handled. Now hear this clearly. The version of you that was too much, too loud, too bold, too saturated in color, that version was never wrong. It was early. It arrived before its season. And tomorrow, its season opens. You may feel it as a sudden, restless pull towards something you abandoned. Follow it. But creating in the dark only carries you so far, because the moment you stop hiding the work, a sharper question arrives. Who finally gets to see it? But the question of who sees your work leads to a harder one. Who gets to see you? And you already know the calculation. You do it at the door of almost every room. How much of myself is safe here? How loud can my voice be? How visible can my love be? How unfiltered can my presence be before someone decides it is too much? So you code switch. You soften the edges of your identity. You leave the truest version of yourself at home, folded neatly, where it cannot cost you anything. Here is what Jupiter in Leo does to that habit. It does not promise that every room suddenly becomes safe. It does something more disruptive. It makes the shrinking unbearable. The discomfort of hiding grows louder than the discomfort of being seen. Because Leo is ruled by the sun, and the sun has never once asked the room for permission to rise. It does not negotiate its own existence. Jupiter takes that solar refusal and amplifies it inside you, until preemptively editing yourself feels less like safety and more like slow suffocation. This is the threshold where going back stops being possible. And the moment you stop shrinking, something outside you begins to respond. And here is what begins to respond. Recognition. Not the kind you have been chasing, the polished, performed, carefully managed kind. The real kind. The moment someone or something sees you without the costume on. Think about what you have actually been doing all these years. Calculating the most acceptable version of yourself before walking into a room. Editing your laugh, your ambition, your tenderness, your strangeness into something safe enough to be rewarded. And it worked, sometimes. But the recognition that came was for the performance, not for you. Which is why even your wins have felt strangely hollow. Here is what Jupiter in Leo changes. It does not reward the strategy. It rewards the unedited self, the one that is too loud, too specific, too much for some people, and exactly right for the ones meant to find you. The version you assumed you had to hide is the version that becomes magnetic now. And the payoff is not that everyone suddenly claps. It is that the recognition arriving is real, from a person who truly sees you, a platform that responds, or that quiet internal moment when you finally recognize yourself. It lands because, for once, you were fully there to receive it. But why now? Why does this feel fated rather than random? Look at where Jupiter actually enters. 0 degrees Leo. The very first breath of the sign. The unfiltered point before anything has been diluted or compromised. 0 degrees of a fixed sign is not a soft beginning. It carries an initiatory charge, the pure signature of an energy era starting from scratch. This is not a transit that flickers and fades. It builds. And here is why it feels fated rather than random. Trace the line back 12 years. to 2014 and 2015, when Jupiter last moved through Leo. Whatever you were beginning to claim then, a voice, an identity, a quiet sense of who you actually were beneath the editing, was being seeded. This is not a reset. It is that same thread returning at a higher frequency, ready to expand into its next chapter. Fixed energy does not open and close quickly. Over the next 13 months, this compounds, rewarding those who let themselves be seen early. But you will not wake up tomorrow transformed. Here is what the shift actually looks like. It starts with something almost too small to notice. You send the message you have been drafting for months, the one you kept softening, kept rewording, kept saving for a better moment. Except now you press send before the fear can talk you out of it. That is the first signal. Not lightning, a decision made without the usual self-editing. Then the outside world starts answering. An opportunity surfaces that requires you to be seen. An old contact reappears to acknowledge something you did long ago. People respond to the version of you that showed up unfiltered, because that is the frequency Jupiter in Leo amplifies. And underneath it, the quiet shift. The cost of hiding begins to outweigh the risk of being seen. For the first time, that equation flips, and it does not flip back. This is not one day. Across 13 months, every visible act compounds, which is exactly why what you do next matters. So let me tell you the truth you have been waiting years to hear. You were never too much. You were early. The world had not yet entered this Jupiter in Leo cycle, and the version of you that takes up this much space had not yet been called forward. What got dismissed, dimmed, or delayed in you was never the flaw. It was always the point. And starting tomorrow, you stop waiting to be discovered. You become undeniable. So if Jupiter in Leo found you exactly when you needed it, comment the word crowned below, your declaration that you are done asking permission to shine, and subscribe so every cosmic update meant for you reaches you in time. Step through. The crown was always yours.